If there is a big behaviour, like throwing, hitting, spitting, there is this need to punish. It's like this child has to be punished. We have to let the parents know that they're punished. We have to make an example of them, like it's the freaking Handmaid's Tale, right? And I feel like it gets to a point where you have that extreme behaviour as educators who are passionate about our approach. You start to feel a bit wobbly, start to feel like, oh, I'm not really sure where to go from here, because you'll say, oh, I don't know if punishing's the right thing. And they're like, well, the parent has to feel punished. They need to know this is not right, etc. And you start to feel like questioning the ethos and not knowing what to do. And I don't think there is a lot of chat about this. So let's get into it. First of all, let's talk about consequences. What we know about consequences is if it is a natural or logical consequence, that's going to make sense. It's actually going to change the behaviour. And I'm talking for children and adults. It's research backed. It just makes sense. Now let me explain. I say natural consequence all the time. I love it. I'm like, natural consequence, which is quite annoying. But a natural consequence is something that happens naturally. So if you say, no running on the stairs, and they fall over, you obviously we're not going to go, told you so. But it's kind of the natural consequence, isn't it? If we say, oh, be careful with those scissors or something, and then they accidentally cut their work, that's kind of the natural consequence. Now, a logical consequence is when you put a consequence in place that makes sense, linked to the behaviour that they were doing. So let's say they kept using the scissors incorrectly, you then take away the scissors. Well, you can't use them for this task. Or they keep, with the felt tip pens, like stabbing them. All right, well, you can't use the felt tip pens. But we are not doing it in a way where they're standing up and we're going, everyone look at Jen who can't use felt tip pens. We're just firstly saying, this is how you use the felt tip pens, otherwise they're going to break. And then when they do it, you say, okay, well, you can't use it then because I've shown you how to use it. You're not using it properly, so you now can't use it. It's a logical consequence. So those make sense. Now, where this runs a little bit thin is when you get to things like extreme behaviours in school. And I'm saying extreme behaviours, and what I mean by that are ones that are on one side of the spectrum of causing a danger or harm to others or themselves. So if it's like, throwing or hitting, it's quite tricky then to be like, well, what's the natural and logical consequence going on here? And then also there's the issue for your behaviour policy, because it's like we need an agreed system, an agreed language of what we are going to do. So then it's really tough for all of the educators and the whole community of what happens when that. And as a parent, you also don't want to be like, well, if you just hit someone, people are just allowed to hit people. You want to have some kind of guidelines of what the school is going to do so that it doesn't happen again. Now, I think there are some punitive consequences that just go to wild extremes. Like if you are like in year 2 and you do something on a Friday and then you've missed out all of your play the next week because of it, it just doesn't make sense. Like from a neuroscience perspective, those children cannot retain the emotional context over time. So something's happened, maybe they've hit someone on a Friday and they miss all. I remember having this chat with one of my deputies and they were like, well, no play all of next week. And luckily this was towards the end of my career and the Good Morning Club was established and I had all of this kind of knowledge and confidence, which I didn't always have I didn't always have that. I would very much just listen to my leaders. But I was like, first of all, they have a right to play. That's kind of my first one. But also, it doesn't make sense because on Friday, then what? They're going to go lark about at the weekend. Monday, normal lessons, and then you're not going out to play. It doesn't make sense from a cognitive perspective. They cannot retain that emotional context. They're not connecting the dots of that cause and effect. The only thing it's doing is confusing and causing friction, and it's causing shame. What we know about shame as an emotion is that shame ignites like disconnection. It ignites stress. And those two things are literally the opposite of learning. They are not the route to learning. It's not like, first stop, let's disconnect with everyone. Second stop, let's feel terrible. Like, that's just not it. Like, that's not how children learn. Children learn through connection. Children learn through co-regulation. Children learn through neuroplasticity, repetition, not shame, not punishment. So we are actually not achieving anything when we go down a punishment route. All we are achieving is a sense of control, a sense of, okay, well, I've said that and that's what's happened. And also a sense of control for parents. Well, good, something's happened now. But the child hasn't learnt anything, which means it is likely to happen again. And we all know this. You all know children in your schools or schools you've been in that have had play taken away, that have been punished, and it wasn't one time. It wasn't like, oh, that was one rare situation. It's like they're there every single week, every single day, whether it's sitting on a bench, standing on a wall, timeout chair, detention room, whatever it is, whatever little wrapped up, even reflection room, however it's wrapped up, if the same children are always there, it's not working. If a child is constantly being punished, they're not learning. And I think it's really important to just take a step back at that. And the first time I really thought about that it was in my third year of teaching, and I became part of the senior leadership team, and I became head of behaviour, which is kind of wild, isn't it? Like, what was it? I must have been about 23 at the time. But I was in charge of looking at the data, and my school had like a detention. We had detentions. They would have a detention room. We had timeout walls. Like, it was archaic, extremely strict, punitive, nothing like I am today. And it was my job to go through all of the data to see everyone would have a slip as they go into the detention room, to collect them all, to write them up, to put them in spreadsheets, and I would give them out to like year group leaders and explain the statistics of, you know, we've seen a spike in year 5 or whatever. What a weird job. But really interesting as well, and really interesting for me now to reflect on that, because ding, 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 same children every week, not learning, just feeling worse about themselves, feeling worse about school, feeling worse about educators and me, like just having a terrible time. So we know we learn through connection and co-regulation. And I think where the issue is with this is people think, okay, so a child hit someone and we're just going to give them a cuddle. And it's not that, but it's understanding that if a child has hit someone, that is a complex behaviour that deserves a complex response. It's not like, oh, you've hit someone, okay, you've no play for the rest of the week. Well, it doesn't get to the root of it. It doesn't do anything. So what schools need to do, and what I work with schools to do, is build new systems that are research backed, that make sense, that support the child, support you, support parents. So this isn't about, you've hit someone, oh, you must be really upset, cuddle. okay? It's a mixture of different things. It's a complex response. So first of all, I'm going to just say this because you might be thinking, Jen, I need a little bit more. Like, what are we going to do if a child hits someone? Of course, we need firm boundaries, okay? Of course, we need to explicitly explain what children absolutely cannot do. And we need to do that in a neuroaffirming way. We need to do that in a research-backed way. We know that our communication is the way it's processed, only about 20% of it is through language. 70 to 90% of it is through your body language. We know that. So how are we actually teaching children? How are we actually explicitly saying? Are we using visuals? Are we using our body language? Are we modeling what to do and what not to do? Are we writing it? Do they have a prompt? Because if we are just saying it, if we're just saying you absolutely cannot hit people, that's only got a 20% success rate of actually being processed. Not to mention when you put in all of the other variables, like what regulation state they are, what developmental level they are, if they're neurodivergent, etc., etc. So it's firm boundaries, yes, but it's the delivery of firm boundaries that are so crystal clear. But then it's also understanding the behaviour as, okay, this is either a dysregulation issue, it's a skill issue, often it's social skills, taking turns, etc. It's a social skills issue or an emotional issue, or it could be both, okay? So it could be that they're getting dysregulated and they don't have the skills, in which case we need to support both of those situations. And as a parent, what I want to hear is, this is the action we are putting in place so it doesn't happen again. We have explicitly said to this child, this behaviour is not allowed. But as a team, these are the actions we are putting in place. We've identified that this child is getting heightened straight after play or during play or before play, play being the key word here. And therefore, we've put in a regulation rhythm, which is a TGMC version of sensory circuits linked to all of our digital backpack stuff. It might be, we've identified that this child's finding it really tricky in group situations, and this is where these behaviours are happening. So we've put in place specific interventions. We have connect the dots interventions in TGMC to meet this need. So short term, they know this absolutely cannot happen. Long term, we are building these skills. It's also thinking, like, if it's happening at play, what can we put in place? If a child is building skills, what can we put in place? Is it that they have the midday supervisor is kind of got that child to kind of look over? Is it that they need scaffolded play? Is it that they have interventions with the teaching assistant 5 minutes before play and 5 minutes after? And I know that these things take time. I know that it's not like, Jen, come on, it's not that easy. I totally get that. And it's not lost on me. But I also know that being in continual negative cycles takes time, takes energy, and it's not helpful for anyone. So it's kind of like choose your hard, and we want to implement strategies that are going to long-term help everyone out. So it's having these conversations of, okay, well, what does this child need in terms of dysregulation, skills, and how can we actually build these to safeguard that this doesn't happen again? We know that neuroplasticity needs repetition. So how are we repeating those opportunities so those neural pathways are just connecting and loving life? Because if we just say one time, oh, this is how you should do it, just through our language, we're not really ensuring they're successful. Are we modelling it so they can see what that is? So it's having a more holistic approach to what we can actually do so that it doesn't happen again. So I'm going to summarise this. First of all, it doesn't make sense to be doing punitive consequences for extreme behaviours. What we need to look at is firm boundaries but also identifying whether it's lack of skills or a dysregulation or both, and putting an action plan in place for that. I know that this is not easy. I know that this is hard, but this is the movement. This is the movement of, if we do what we always did, we're not preparing our children for tomorrow. We are stuck. We are stuck in negative cycles. We are stuck with exhausted teachers. And we are stuck with children not learning the skills they actually need to succeed beyond our classroom walls. So it is about collectively working together to shift this narrative. This is the movement, my friends. I am going to pop a little freebie. If you've got to this point, like, I mean, props to you. I'm going to pop a little freebie in the notes that might help, one, explain this to leaders in a bit more of a formal way, because this is YouTube Unhinged, and two, give you a starting document to start thinking about how to move forward. All right, my loves. See you next time.